It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Let's hope that everything works okay, because I am working off of a new computer and a new setup, and everything might just be messed up. So let's hope that it's not. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. We're going to go ahead and keep going with this thing and kind of see how it rolls, see how bad it is. Let's just see what happens. So hello. How are you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. I have got a couple things I want to talk about as usual, and definitely want to get to you guys' questions, comments, and different things like that. Do me a favor, if you guys aren't already, if you guys have questions or things you want me to talk about, please put them in caps lock in the chat. That way it's easier for me to recognize and see the questions or comments. If I miss your guys' questions and comments, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? So far, am I coming across okay? Is the stream, I had to make some adjustments and things, so I'd kind of like, let me know in the chat, how is everything working as far as the stream goes? The quality look okay? Does the audio sound okay? Picture is fuzzy. That is not good. That is a bummer. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, it should be better than 480. I don't know why it's doing 480 only. That's interesting. Picture is fuzzy. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot. Okay, cool. There's not a whole lot I can do at this point right now, as the stream's already running. Let me try to fix one thing here real quick. Okay, all right, cool. Oh, okay, I got you. Yes, so I did do something at the very beginning of the stream for the people that were in there in the very beginning. I did a movie on my other monitor, and someone already answered it. And it was, the first person to email me was Joshua. Joshua already emailed me and already responded. Josh Hamilton, actually. So he was the first person to send me an email. So what I was doing is, in the very beginning of the live chat, as the live stream was going on, I said that I would be playing a movie on one of my screens. And when the camera angle started from the back, there was a movie playing on the screen, and Joshua guessed it. It was the Rocky Horror Picture Show was playing in the background. So Let's see. What model of Samsung phone am I using for Measure Quick? Currently, I have the newest Samsung. I think it's an S21 Plus, I think is what it is. I use that for Measure Quick, and then I also have a tablet. It's a Galaxy Tab A, just a cheapy tablet, you know, like $200 or something like that from Costco, and I use that. I primarily use the tablet. Every once in a while I use my phone, but the reason why I use the tablet is because I film with my phone, so I'm always using my phone as a camera. And yes, guys, I film everything with my phone, and you can get 4K with this. The only thing with this phone is that you have to it fills up the phone's memory really fast, so you have to offload your phone every single day, and if you're shooting a crazy video, you might even have to add more to it. Do I like Apple products? No, I'm not an Apple fan. I used to have Apple products, but I found myself getting very frustrated with them, and I got away from them probably about 8 years ago. So no, we don't do Apple products in my house. So let me see what else we got going on in here. And looks like 480 watching on an iPhone. Yeah. All right, I'm answering that one. Yeah, if you guys haven't already, please smash the thumbs up button, guys. It would really, really help the stream for sure. And I don't know why the quality is only at 480. I saw some people say they can get it at 720. I don't know what's going on with that. All right, let's see. Can I check superheat on a mini split? If not, what tests can be done to check efficiency? Okay, so on a mini split, it can be rather difficult to check certain things. Plus, on top of that, most of the time on mini splits, they are variable. Okay, the compressor is variable, the fans are variable. So you need to lean on the manufacturer of the mini split to verify refrigerant charge. Majority of the time, what they're going to tell you to do with a mini split is recover the charge and weigh it back in and go from there. Okay, there is some things you can do to check efficiency on a mini split. It's not the greatest in the world, but if you can manage to measure the airflow, you can do a BTU calculation off of it using some psychrometers and different things, but I don't know how completely accurate it would be. You really want to lean on the manufacturer of the mini split because they all have proprietary ways. Majority of them don't have proper process ports and different things to check the charge with. So oftentimes, depending on the manufacturer, they may want you to hook up a computer. They may want you to do temperature checks in different places to verify that it's working properly. So you always want to lean on the manufacturer of that equipment to kind of get a better idea. Let's see what else we got going on in here. All right. Yeah, if you guys do have questions, please put them in caps lock, okay? All right. I wanted to talk about something. First off, too, I told a bunch of people that I would talk about my computer setup, and I will talk about it here in a few minutes. I did with the help of my buddy Ike. I think Ike's in here right now. Yeah, he is. He helped me to pick out all the components and stuff, and I was able to kind of put a computer together. Realistically, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and my buddy Ike just helped me out. So I just kind of plug and played, turned it on, did a few different things, and we have a ridiculously powerful computer. That is amazing. So I'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But I want to kind of talk about something to start off this stream, okay? I want to talk about common sense, right? In the past, I was accused because I was having a discussion with a previous technician of mine, and he had made a mistake on something, and in our conversation back and forth, I mentioned, that's common sense, dude. And he told me that's common sense to you, but not to me. And that was a fair statement, okay? The term common sense is not really a true term because who's it common to? Now, I use the term all the time, and I think it's more of a crutch to say, realistically, I think majority of the people should know these certain things. Like, it's common sense, right? But things are different now, and we can't always assume that people are going to think the way that we think. Now, I know that I'm crazy. I know that I'm kind of a nut when it comes to thinking about things and doing things. So it can be hard for me to realize things. And I'm sure there's some undiagnosed mental disorders. While there is some diagnosed mental disorders with me too, I'm sure there's some undiagnosed stuff. I'm a very particular person, okay? And a lot of the times I expect people to understand what I'm thinking, and that's not very fair of me, okay? So I have to catch myself quite often and say, okay, wait. And it's funny because the other day I was working with a couple of my technicians. We were doing a walk-in evaporator replacement, and I was talking to myself, and one of them kept saying, what? What? And I'm like, dude, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. Like, I genuinely talk to myself when I work. I rationalize things. I'm crazy, okay? So I'm a peculiar person, right? And I have my own little strange way of doing things. And I have to catch myself quite often and remind myself that not everybody's like me. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, that might be a good thing that people aren't like me, because I'm sure there's some headaches there. I'm sure you could talk to my wife and she'd tell you all kinds of things that make her nuts about me. But there's some things in this trade that I feel like people need to understand. And when, most of the time when I'm talking about common sense, it's basic, fundamentals, like mechanical fundamentals. Like, I would expect it to be common sense that if someone is pulling something onto a roof with a rope, that it's common sense that the weight of that object will pull the rope back down if they let it go. Things like that, But unfortunately, these days, with a lot of the new blood coming into the trade, sometimes they don't understand basic mechanics and basic principles of gravity and different things like that. And unfortunately, we have to understand that, and we either have to learn to deal with it, or we have to move on from that particular person. But the problem, in my opinion, is that there's a large amount of people that are coming into the trade that just don't understand what we would consider to be common sense. So I'm finding myself having to look inside and think, how can I do this better? How can I educate people on things that I never thought I would have had to educate people on? But it is what it is. Now, luckily, I have a good crew right now, and I'm not having to deal with any of those problems. But in the past, I have. And it's something that I have to step back and remember, that common sense is not a very good term in general, because you're assuming that people understand things the way that you do, So that's kind of a difficult thing. And I'm kind of curious what you guys in the chat think. Is it frustrating to you when people don't understand basic things, or is it just something that you guys have realized that we have to learn to live with and change, and change for ourselves to educate people better? Obviously, if we want to get younger people into this trade and younger kids into this trade, we're going to have to do something. And, the whole idea of, they better do it my way or they better move on. I mean, you got to be careful saying that, because you're going to get a lot of people moving on. We have to evolve. We have to change the way that we let younger kids or younger people coming into the trade learn. And we have to change the ways that we try to educate them, when it comes to new technology and different stuff like that. I consider myself to be an old school guy, and I know some of you guys out there are probably older than me. I'm 38. I've been in the trade for a majority of my life, and I still am kind of stubborn in the way that I do things. Like, for instance, I still have some crazy superstitions. If I'm brazing on the roof, you do not take my torches off the roof until I've got refrigerant in the system and I've done a leak check. For me, it's just that weird thing of there's always leaks whenever I take my torches off the roof too soon. It's like an old school mentality. And is there truth in that? No, but it's just something that, it's kind of some of the old school ways, but at the same time, us old school technicians need to learn to evolve too, because the trade is ever changing. New technology, new stuff coming out. When VRF came out 10, 15 years ago, people said, oh, no, we're not going to use that. Yeah, but VRF is dominating the industry right now. So, we have to evolve with it. If we don't evolve, we're going to get left behind. And the cool thing about this trade is that we have job security. As long as we're good technicians and we know what we're doing, we're not going to lose our jobs, right? As long as we're not a jerk and not doing stupid stuff and going and getting a DUI and all this stuff, we're probably not going to lose our jobs. In fact, we've probably got a career for life. We need to share the information out there. And there's too many people out there. I still get comments and emails from people saying, stop sharing this information. I paid a lot of money to learn all this stuff. Who cares? You know what? Our trade is hurting right now. So I'm going to stand on top of my highest pedestal and share the little bit of knowledge that I have with everybody that I can. and it is what it is, because I know my job's not going away. In fact, it's going to help me if I can get new people into the trade. It's going to help me, and it's going to help everybody else. So I feel like we all need to be sharing a little bit more. Let's see what else we got going on in here. I'm looking at the chat right now. Common sense, John Cruz says, hand me the tool before I ask for it. So I was just thinking about something today. I have an apprentice working with me, and he's doing really, really good. And for a moment today, I was sitting here thinking in my head, you know what, man, I send him down to the van to get too many things, and maybe I should start getting some of the stuff myself. It kind of goes back and forth in my head. This is a conversation that I have, but no. There's value in him going down to get stuff because he's learning. He's learning that when we're changing a compressor, today we were installing a condensing unit. When we're installing a condensing unit, this is the stuff that we're going to need. And the more that he has to go down to the van, the smarter he's going to get, in that he's going to anticipate what I'm going to ask him for, and he's going to start bringing it up. When you go down to go get something, I always think, okay, how can I be more efficient? What can I take down with me that I'm done with? And what can I bring up with me? Okay, I need the vacuum pump and my vacuum hoses right now, but eventually I'm going to need a scale and refrigerant too. So I've got room. I'm going to go ahead and bring that all in at the same time and save myself a trip. So, an apprentice knowing what you need before you need it is a sign of him almost being done with his apprenticeship. I mean, that is really a sign. If he truly can anticipate what you're going to need, then you're doing a great job teaching him. And that is part of the process of learning, is becoming a go-getter, or a gopher, whatever you want to call it, and grabbing the tools that you need. And as time goes on, he gets more familiar. Then I start letting him get his hands on things. We start letting him braze. We talk about things. I am not a perfect mentor. Okay. There's so much room for improvement, but little things that I do when I have the time, now that we're coming into the slower season, right? I have the time to spend more time with my apprentice and let him do more of the work. And that's the kind of stuff that I do is, we'll go up, and when we're working on something, I'll ask him, okay, what do you think's wrong with this? And he says, well, this fan motor's not working. And I go, okay, what would that do? How does the fan motor not working affect the operation? And we're talking about a condenser fan motor. And so then I'll ask him, explain what happens in the system and why it's bad, and it's that kind of stuff. Instead of just saying it has a bad fan motor, we explore the topic of why the bad fan motor, condenser fan motor, causes the system not to work properly. Okay. And, we go through that process. So again, I am not a perfect mentor, but I'm trying, and I evolve and I learn every single day. Okay. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. We covered that one. All right, if you guys haven't already, please smash the thumbs up button. It definitely helps out the stream, guys. Okay. And let me see. Okay, I'm not missing anything right here. Why do ACs run on 208 volts and why not 240 or 277? Perry, it really depends on the type of power distribution system you have, the type of transformer that's stepping down the voltage from the power poles outside. Between a delta and a Y transformer, you're going to see different types of voltages, okay? So you'll see typically more on a residential side, you're going to see 240 volts. And then on some industrial stuff, you might see 240 volts. But typically on my stuff with restaurants and commercial, what I deal with is 208 volts. So it really has to do with the power distribution system and what type of transformer they have stepping down the voltage. All right. Already answered that one. Okay. So, this last weekend, I had another service technician on call. It was my weekend off, and it was a hectic weekend. I decided in the last minute, rushing it to try to build a computer. So that was hectic, trying to put it together and build it. Took a couple days because I couldn't spend hours and hours. We got to do a little bit, then I had to go do something, I had a normal life, right? This was my weekend that I wasn't on call, so my wife already had plans, and my family had plans. My daughter had a big cheerleading game that I went to, which this is only the second cheerleading game I was able to go to because I've been so busy with work. And then my oldest daughter had homecoming dance, and a homecoming football game. It was just a crazy weekend. Then on top of that, I wasn't on call. So I was super busy Friday. I was super busy Saturday. And then come Sunday, I was like, man, I am not going to do anything. I worked Saturday nights up super late till like 1 a.m, editing a video and getting it posted and everything. And then Sunday morning, I woke up around 8 or 9. Wanted to sleep in, I'm drinking my coffee, and then saw that one of my service techs was doing a service call on a walk-in cooler not working. And then I got the call from him that the walk-in cooler had a bad compressor and we were going to have to do a compressor change out on it. Now, this particular system, it was literally kind of funny how it works, because this upcoming Thursday, we were scheduled to replace the entire condensing unit at that system. So we had the condensing unit sitting at the shop, and I wasn't about to sell the customer a compressor. So put on my work clothes, loaded up my trailer, got my 26-foot or 24-foot equipment lift, grabbed the condensing unit, met my technician on site, and spent 6 hours on Sunday changing a condensing unit. Now, we didn't have to call a crane because we had a good location to use my equipment lift. I use a Sumner 24-foot, I don't know if it's a 24-27 or something like that lift, but it's a really nice lift that has outriggers on the legs, so it's stable, won't fall left and right. And we are able to lift that condensing unit up 26 feet, slide it onto the roof edge, and then get up onto the roof and pull it down. And we had to change a condensing unit. It was a bummer because I wasn't on call, but I was the next available technician. Nobody else is available. I'm actually short staffed on technicians right now, so there's only 2 full-fledged techs, myself and another. So I was the person to help, and I did what I had to do, and it was a bummer, but it's life. That's part of being refrigeration, having to do that kind of stuff. And luckily we were able to get done in a decent amount of time. It took us about 6 hours. Installed a new condensing unit. It's temporary. We still have to go back because we didn't have the disconnect switch and stuff like that, but we did what we had to do and got it going. So, how do you adjust TXV superheat on a 2 TXV system? Well, a couple different ways you can do it. Digital gauges are going to make your life a lot easier. I use an app called Measure Quick. Within Measure Quick, there's multiple superheat modes, so you can get 1 suction pressure and then 2 temperature clamps, and you can look at the superheat of both evaporators at the same time. Actually just had to do it this weekend. But if you don't have Measure Quick, or you don't have all the fancy stuff, it's just a matter of adjusting superheat on one coil, then letting it stabilize out. Remember that when you're making superheat adjustments, you make tiny adjustments and you wait a little while. Wait 15-20 minutes, watch it kind of stabilize out, then adjust accordingly. Don't go in there and start adjusting an expansion valve 3 turns, because you're going to be in a disaster. I do quarter turns at a time, no more than 1 full turn at a time. So sometimes I'll do a quarter turn if I know my superheat's way out of whack and I need to bring it way down. As long as, and this is something I want to point out too. All right. Again, this is one of those common sense things that I assume in my head, but I constantly have to remind myself to tell this kind of stuff, okay? Superheat adjustments are the last thing you want to do, okay? If you have an expansion valve that you don't think is working properly, the first step is put your gauges on the system. Check the superheat, okay? Never make expansion valve adjustments without actually verifying the evaporator superheat, okay? Once you've verified what the superheat is there a possibility you have a plugged up filter dryer and or a plugged up strainer before that TXV? If that's the case, you need to change the filter dryer or clean the strainer before you try to make superheat adjustments, because you're just going to be beating your head against a wall if you try to adjust an expansion valve that has a dirty strainer. Now, oftentimes I'm the only person to work on my system, so I know that majority of the components are not going to be dirty. You're not going to have plugged up screens and different things like that. But that is something that we need to anticipate and understand before we start adjusting superheat. Always make sure the strainer is clean, the filter dryer before the strainer is clean. Make sure you do that before you start adjusting on an expansion valve. Then when you make adjustments, make an adjustment and give it time, and you're just going to have to go from one coil to another. But I have to tell you, if you guys don't have the Measure Quick app, you need to go download it. It's free on the app stores. You can hook it up to your field piece probes. You can hook it up to your testo probes, whatever you're using. Okay, it works amazing, and it has that multiple superheat test, and it makes it so easy to do multiple superheats and make adjustments. So, and the cool thing with the multi superheat mode, understand something too. Evaporator superheat and compressor superheat are 2 different things. Compressor superheat, you measure the suction line about 6 to 12 inches before the compressor, assuming there's insulation on the lines. The compressor superheat is first. The evaporator superheat is second. Okay, you need to sometimes adjust your evaporator superheat in a direction you don't expect it to make sure that you have proper compressor superheat, okay? Because and or you might need to fix some problems, but you always look at the compressor first, make sure that you're within range, and then make your adjustments at the evaporator, and then check the compressor again, okay? Don't forget about the compressor, because making huge changes down at the evaporator might affect the compressor in a negative way, and that's the cooling typically for that compressor. So you always want to look into that, okay? All right, let's see. Where do I draw the line for doing the electrical work and an electrician doing the work? Scotty. So when it comes to my customers, if I have to repair anything on the roof, you know, within reason of, you know, let's say I'm doing a package unit replacement, okay? And I need to bring in new electrical to the package unit. If I have a junction box where there's splice connections already in it, then I have no problem doing the work and making the splice connections myself. If I have to go below the roof deck, if I have to go to an electrical panel, that's when an electrician gets involved with what I do, okay? I'm not putting my hands into a panel. Sometimes I'll open a panel just to look at it to get an idea what's going on, but I'm not going to be getting into a panel, pulling wire, running conduit, that kind of stuff. Now, if I have to just replace a couple feet of conduit on the roof, I have no problem doing that, okay? So that's typically where I draw the line. When it comes to walk-in freezers and walk-in cooler startups, for the most part, I do all my own electrical, because typically I'm not doing new construction. I'm doing retrofit, service, and replacement. So therefore, I've already got existing power that's usually sufficient. So I will go ahead and run conduit from the condensing unit down to the evaporator if need be, or I'll utilize the existing conduit when I'm replacing equipment. So again, I'm not doing new construction work. I'm doing retrofit work on existing equipment. So, all right, let me mark that one off of my list. I talked about 2 of those things. Drew had asked me a question in the YouTube comments, and he was curious why I was purging with nitrogen when I was unsweating the compressor on my video that I released yesterday, okay? Well, if you think about it, if the system is void of refrigerant, you've pulled all the refrigerant out of the system, if you're going to be brazing on them, you've purged that system. There's already nitrogen, there's maybe air in the lines. We're still going to want to purge with nitrogen while we're brazing, okay? So I still try to purge as much as possible to, you know, keep oxygen from getting into the system and causing the oxidation and that weird whatever crap that happens on the inside of the lines when it gets too hot. I'm not a perfect technician. I don't always braze with nitrogen, but I try to as much as possible, okay? Especially when I'm doing walk-ins and stuff like that. But sometimes, you know, I've said it many times before, sometimes you can't pull a perfect vacuum. Sometimes you can't purge with nitrogen in the best way because the system might be pumped down or something like that. If you ever have a system that is pumped down, I urge you guys to be extremely cautious putting nitrogen in the system. There's always the potential that a valve might leak or something might happen. And if you are going to pressure test with nitrogen when you have a pump down system, just make sure that the pressure test doesn't exceed the pressure of the refrigerant being held back by the king valve. Okay, keep that in mind, because if you put 400 pounds of nitrogen and you only have 250 pounds of refrigerant on the other side of the king valve, there's always the potential that that refrigerant can leak back in and mix with the nitrogen. And I know some people that have made that mistake before, so you always want to be cautious about that. Understand and remember that when you have a system pumped down at a king valve, when you have solenoid valves, when you have a compressor reed or anything like that, none of those are 100% leak free. So things will always be leaking back, okay? So just keep that in mind and try to keep a level head when you're doing that kind of repair work, okay? All right, let's get on to the comments right now and see what else we got going on in here. What have I heard about A2Ls? A2L are mildly flammable refrigerants such as R32, and there's some other ones that are being used too. You know, it's just it's part of things that are coming about, right? I work with hydrocarbon refrigerants, which are highly flammable refrigerants. R290, work with it almost weekly. One of my technicians is working on an R290 system. So A2Ls are a walk in the park because I'm already prepared and well versed in the proper practices when working with flammable refrigerants, okay? Something to remember about A2Ls though, which is going to be the newer line of refrigerants coming out. Keep in mind with something, guys. The hippies are going to constantly change the way we do things, right? If the hippies had their way, we wouldn't even be using water to wash ourselves in the shower. Okay. So with that being said, the hippies are always knocking at it. And all the refrigerants that we're using today, I guarantee will be gone in 10 years, and they'll have new refrigerants replacing those. Okay. So there's always going to be change. And that's the cool thing about this industry is as long as we're embracing change, shoot, we can stay busy the entire time because we got to constantly evolve. What did Brian Orr released a slide today saying, just talking about the phase out of refrigerants and different things, and by 2030 all HCFCs are going to be completely out of the picture, you know, if I read the thing right or whatever. And you know, that's not too far away, guys. That's really not too far away. So we have a lot of changes coming up in the industry for sure. So all right, let's see what else we got going on in here. Let's see. How do you reduce the changes of creating chances of creating phosgene gas while sweating out a compressor? Put nitrogen in there. Put nitrogen in there and displace the refrigerant. Do I follow hockey or what sports? Neil C. Vids. No, I don't follow any sports. I enjoy playing sports. I don't do it very often, but I'm not a sports person. It's funny because my dad is a diehard sports fan. Growing up, watched every sport possible, but I just never got into it. So don't watch any sports whatsoever. Let's see. All right, so I want to talk about this. I know a bunch of people were asking. I'm going to go over it really quickly. First off, if you guys don't already know, there's a Discord server called HVACR Videos. Discord server. If you guys are interested, Discord is like a giant chat room. Okay. I'm going to post a link to the Discord server in here right now. And if you guys are interested, you can definitely go join it. Okay. So here's the Discord link right now. In the Discord server, there's a computer discussion area, and there's all kinds of talk about my computer and what we did and why we did it. Okay. I'm going to briefly run over the specs because we just built a computer. I put it together. My buddy Ike helped me really quickly. Okay. We used an AMD Threadripper processor, 3970, 3.7 gigahertz, 32 cores. Okay. Liquid cooling made by Corsair for the processor. We used a Gigabyte TRX 40 motherboard. I know for this is probably Chinese to some of you guys, but for the computer guys, this is, you know, a wet dream or whatever. 128 gigabytes of memory. We have tons of storage space on the computer. So we have a Western Digital Black 4 terabyte hard drive. That the plan is that when I grab my phone and I download the data, I'm going to download it onto the 4 terabyte black hard drive, right? And then I'm going to use, I have a Western Digital Gold 18 terabyte hard drive that I'm going to use for permanent storage. So when I'm done editing a video, we'll put the raw files and the storage on that. We also have a Samsung 1 terabyte solid state drive that the operating system and everything resides on. We have a MSI Radeon RX 6900 XT 16 gigabyte video card. We went with a giant oversized tower, so there's tons of room because my fat fingers, it was hard enough to get everything in there, even with a giant oversized tower. 1200 watt power supply, and we're running Windows 10 operating system. Okay, so as far as why I did that is because I noticed some issues when I was editing videos, and also my hard drive, I was using an external hard drive. It's maxed out. Okay, currently I have been editing using Adobe Premiere Elements, which is a dumbed down, easy version of Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, Adobe Premiere Pro is the ultimate editing program, but it's rather complex once you start getting used to it. It gets easier. So I have plans, and I've been thinking about it for a while, that I'm going to start editing on Adobe Premiere Pro, and I wanted to upgrade my computer system because of that, okay? No, Joshua Cash, no RAID or NAS at this time, but that is something we're going to work on in the future. We're exploring different options of what we're going to do, because right now, I have a 5 terabyte hard drive that's completely full. I think I have like 400 gigabytes of space left on it. And at the rate I'm going right now, my typical videos, like the video that I released on Sunday, was a 20 gigabyte video. And then I have all the raw files that I saved too. So it's going to start adding up. And the longer videos, the higher it goes. And you know, it's just, we're going to figure this out. But we definitely have a lot of plans. We're going to start, you know, changing some things. We're going to look into a raid, you know, just different stuff like that. Okay. So that's really quick. I'll probably make a video, maybe release it on my channel or something like that, showing the computer and all that fancy stuff. But like I said, it's huge, and it's got plenty of processing power, much more than my previous computer. So, and by me changing to Adobe Premiere Pro, it's going to change the edits and stuff, but it's just going to take a little more time, but it is what it is. So, let me see. I'm looking through the chat right now. Yeah, and B. Millwood, so that's kind of a funny comment. He says, hey, I'm here to repair your freezer, part of my director's chair and film crew. And yes, there is truth in that, right? But I don't have people filming me. That's why my videos are the way that, you know, people will say, how come you don't show every process on your video, right? Well, first off, I'm not a DIY channel, right? I'm sharing the little bit of knowledge I have with HVACR service techs. I realize some of you guys are not HVACR service techs, and that's fine, okay? But I film with my phone. Nothing complex, nothing invasive. I walk in there, nobody's around. I turn on my phone, I start talking to it, film a little clip here and there. But I'm not, you know, filming the entire job, because if I did, my service calls are typically anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. So there's no way I could film 6 hours of footage, and plus it'd be boring as all heck. So I just film the nitty gritty and the cool stuff that I think is interesting. All right, let's see what else we got in here. I'm looking through the chat. What's the worst accident I've ever had while working? Peter Griffin. I just probably burns, you know, discharge line burns or things like that. Luckily, cross my fingers, that's the worst that's ever happened. So, have I ever worked on an ammonia unit? No, I am not. Twin Lab TV, am I hiring? I'm always hiring, but I'm not looking for apprentices right now because I'm currently training an apprentice and I can't do more than one. So if you're an experienced service technician, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Let's see. Did I use PC part picker? Can I send the specs of the computer? Matt Ireland, my buddy Ike might be able to answer that question. I don't know what we use to pick the parts. He might have used PC part picker. I don't know. Beyond that, I gave Ike a budget. I gave Ike a budget, and I told him what I wanted to do, and I showed him my problems, and lo and behold, we did what we needed to do. Bill, thank you so much for that super chat and your bump dumpling. Hashtag there, bud. Let's see. What else we got? Film 1 2-hour call and call it a boring channel. See how many fools watch it. That's true, huh, Chris Young? But the problem is this fool has to edit it. So for every video that you guys see on my channel, if it's a 30-minute video, I watch that video 3 times before I put it on the channel. I watch it in my rough cut, then I watch it on my fine cut, and then I watch it again at completion. So whatever the length of the video is, I have to sit in my office and watch that thing forever, and it's a little time consuming. So I would not film a 2-hour video for sure. That, or I just wouldn't edit it and just be like, yeah, it's messed up. Thanks, Bill. What is the best HVAC system to use for a small home server room? Kevin Brandt, if it's a home server room, man, and you truly need an air conditioning system, you might even be able to get away without an air conditioning system and just install a good airflow through the room. Get an exhaust fan or a return air duct, and you know, move air through the room, bring the cool air from the house. But I guess if you needed to, you could put a mini split in there. But you want to be careful about oversizing an air conditioner for a server room, because you don't want it to add a bunch of humidity and stuff into the room and cause issues with that. So I would, if you can, try to do it without adding any air conditioning. See if maybe you can use your existing air conditioning system, as long as the fan's moving air and the house is kept at a reasonable temperature. Why couldn't you just install an exhaust fan or put a return air duct and draw air through the room all day long? You know, that might be a good idea, something to think about if you can. So in the comments, someone had made a comment that if I worked for him, he would have chewed me out for not checking supply voltage first on a service call. So a couple months back or a month back, I had a video where we were working on a Linux package unit, and it ended up being a burnt lug on the main supply feed, and I ended up having an electrician come out and pull a whole new feed for the AC. But in that video, you know, before The first thing that I didn't check supply voltage. I just assumed supply voltage. Okay. Life happens. I'm not a perfect tech. I make mistakes. Okay. Again, I can edit these videos in the way that you guys think I'm like the best service technician in the world, but I would feel wrong about that. Okay. So of course I'm always learning even I've been in the trade for 20 something plus years. Okay. I still do rookie mistakes and forget about things, and I'm lazy and I do stuff. Okay. It's about how we recover from that and how we learn and how we try to prevent ourselves from doing that stuff again. So I appreciate that you are frustrated, the person that emailed me and saying that he would have chewed me out for not checking supply voltage first. But you know what? It happens, okay? And again, my technicians do it and I coach them. Hey man, you know, in hindsight, it's always best to check this first because you would have prevented these problems or that problem. So we can always learn from that stuff and we always want to try. When did I first notice hot food stored in the walk-in like in my recent video? I don't know. Will Speed, thank you so much for becoming a channel supporter, man. That's really awesome. If you guys don't already know, you don't have to do this. I appreciate any support that I get from you guys, but the easiest way to support this channel is literally just watch my videos from start to end without skipping through anything, okay? When you do that, YouTube runs commercials and YouTube gives me a small portion of the AdSense revenue, okay? That's the easiest way to support this channel. If you guys want to go beyond that, there's a couple other different methods. Bill, Curious HVAC guy, a few minutes ago did a super chat. Super chat is one way to support the channel. Becoming a channel member, like Will Speed did. A channel member is kind of like Patreon, and I'll discuss that here in a second too. But it's through YouTube. You make a monthly commitment. You get a little icon next to your name in the chat. So if you see my little snowflake icon next to the chat, right, and next to anybody's name, that means that they're a channel supporter. So they've made a monthly commitment. I think there's like from $1 to like $20 a month or something like that. There's different options. There's also Patreon, another method of channel support. In the show notes of any YouTube video, when this stream is over, I'll put it in the show notes of this too, but in the show notes of every YouTube video is links to all this different stuff. So Patreon, YouTube channel memberships, super chats, PayPal. You can also go to my website, hvacrvideos.com, and we have merchandise available. At the very beginning of the stream, I gave away a beanie to someone. Before the stream even started, I did something and I played a movie in the background, and the first person to send me an email, I told him I'd send him a beanie. So but we have beanies, shirts, hats, all that different stuff available on the website. And then also, if you guys are interested in purchasing any tools, if you go to truetech.tools.com and you like what they have, you like their pricing, you can use my offer code Big Picture, one word, and as of today, you get an 8% discount on your order, and I get a small commission from that. And if you guys know what you're going to purchase from TrueTech Tools, send me an email and I'll generate an affiliate link and I get a little bit of an extra commission, and you still get your 8% discount. So there's a bunch of different ways to support the channel, like many have already done it, but the easiest way is simply watch the videos from beginning to end without skipping through anything. So in a recent video, I changed a compressor on a beer walk-in, and I cut out a suction line filter dryer. And a couple times in the video I mentioned I might put one back in, but in the end I didn't. I put the compressor in and did not put a suction line filter dryer. Why? Why didn't I put a suction line filter dryer back on it? Well, I didn't see the need for it. The compressor was bad, but it was a mechanical failure. It was locked up. And I just didn't see the need to add a suction line filter dryer to the system. So chose not to, and it's all good. I mean, it is what it is. Something to understand is a suction line filter dryer is a good thing, but it's not necessary. You don't always have to put one on there, okay? Someone had asked me a question. Where do I draw the line when it comes to a customer wanting to do a low budget repair? So I mentioned in my video from wait, which video was it? Which video? Let me look at my videos right here. Actually, yeah, yesterday's video. I mentioned in the video that it was a low budget repair and the customer didn't want to spend a lot of money. So where do I draw the line with a low budget repair? Well, best practices, okay? You know, the fundamental ones. Whenever you change a compressor, whenever you open the system, you change a filter dryer, okay? If a customer didn't want me to change a filter dryer, I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm changing a filter dryer, or they can call someone else, all right? Sometimes people, I don't want to change the filter dryer. Maybe it's okay. That it's just how I do things. I change the filter dryer. So I draw the line with things like that, okay? You know, this particular customer, I don't want to discuss the details, but that equipment, he just didn't want to spend a lot of money because some big changes that are coming. That's as much as I want to say about that right now. So he had me put in a compressor on there. We utilized the existing R22 refrigerant. Why wouldn't I just change the entire condensing unit? A lot of people ask me that too. Well, the entire system is really, really bad. You guys saw in the video that I had to repair a leak down at the evaporator. The evaporator's completely pitted out. The whole thing. I've repaired many leaks on those evaporator coils. So it's not just a condensing unit replacement. 2 years ago, we talked about replacing the entire system and converting it over to another refrigerant. We would have gone with 448A. But that is a convenience store, and I want to say it has a 15 glass door cooler. So that's a very, very big refrigeration system, and it's a rather big expense for him. So, you know, he's got big changes coming. He only wanted to do a low budget repair, so we put in a compressor, the valve, and the minimal repair parts, and that was it. You know, in my videos, oftentimes I've been showing a lot of issues with walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers icing up, and a lot of the times it's customers leaving doors open. Why is it that I'm not installing strip curtains? Why is it that I'm not installing air curtains, door alarms, door buzzers, pump down switches, all that stuff? It's all about the potential for nuisance service calls. First off, none of my customers like strip curtains. They don't really want to deal with them. Strip curtains can be a nuisance when cooks are walking into a walk-in with a plate full of uncovered food, and then the curtains drag on the food and stuff. Like, they just don't like them. There's other types of curtains, but the restaurants basically abuse the crap out of this equipment, and the curtains are just an added expense for them. So majority of the time, they don't want to spend the money on it. What about like a pump down switch or door alarms and different things like that? I've installed door alarms in several different locations, and I come back and they've just got duct tape across the door alarm, so that way they don't have to hear it. Pump down switches, they're a good thing, but they can also be a nuisance. They're a high failure point, and the ones that, in my experience, and the ones that I've worked on, because customers are in and out of that box a million times, so the switches are typically activated or actuating consistently, and I've found them to be nuisance service calls because of the door switches. So it's just something to think about. You know, of course, if the customer wanted to go that route, but majority of the times they don't want to add those things in there. And they want to try to correct the bad behaviors. Unfortunately, right now we're short-staffed in the restaurant industry as far as cooks and different things like that. So they're bringing in a lot of new blood, and they're having to retrain these people. And you know, the service calls are just going through the roof because of it. So let me see. Let me cross a couple things off my list that I talked about. And I answered that one too. And let me get to the chat real quick and see what I got going on in here. What have I missed? Have I ever had to install an iWave for an RTU? John, yeah. I had a customer that demanded that I install iWaves. I tried to talk them out of it because I don't understand how they work. I've since had my buddy Big Clive from Big Clive. Well, a lot of people know who Big Clive is on YouTube. If you guys don't know who Big Clive is, just simply type Big Clive, CLIVE, in the search bar on YouTube. You can't miss him. He has an electronics channel and it's a huge channel, much bigger than mine. And he tears apart electronics, gets down to the nitty gritty, trying to figure out why they are the way they are. He has a very interesting personality. He's a really good friend of the Overtime channel, which is my other show that I do with my friends on Friday evenings, HVAC Overtime. Hey, Joe or Bill or someone, can you put a link to the Overtime channel and to Clive's channel in the chat right now so that people can check them out? But anyways, Clive tried to explain the bipolar ionizers and different things to me, and they still seem a little voodoo magic to me. So anyways, had a customer demand that they wanted them, so I installed them, and they had me install damn near close to 40 of them because they wanted them in every RTU at like the 8 or 9 locations that I service, and they typically have 4 to 5 RTUs at each location. It was a ridiculous amount of iWaves that I installed. So yes, I have installed them. There's a couple different methods to do so. I kind of had my own interesting way of doing it, and it seemed to work out pretty good. Haven't really had any problems with them. I mean, the thing is how do you know if it's working besides you can touch the little whiskers with your fingers and they make a little spark in the dark. That's pretty much the only way you know that they're actually doing something. So whenever I go on a large mechanical part that is failed, whether it be a blower motor or compressor or something like that, I always confirm a diagnosis, okay? So in my recent video, the first thing I did was confirmed that the compressor was bad, right? It's not that I'm trying to go and find that one of my technicians did something wrong or something like that. It's that I'm always going to confirm because, look, I'm the business owner, right? And it's good practice to always confirm. I encourage everybody that goes behind me, confirm my diagnosis, confirm that the motor's bad, confirm, always confirm when you go up behind someone to do something that they condemned that you didn't. You always confirm that stuff, okay? Because by confirming, you're answering some questions. What happens if incorrect information was given to you and you're on the wrong unit? If you had confirmed that the part you were about to change was bad, and you would have said, wait, it's not bad, then you would have made some phone calls and maybe you would have figured out, oh, I'm looking at the wrong unit. So it's always good to confirm a diagnosis, especially on really big ticket items for sure. So, all right. Can someone please repost the link for the Discord server? Yes, I will post it right now. The Discord server link is coming in right now. There we go. All right. All right. Are the tool links in the videos affiliate links? Yes, they are affiliate links. Let's see what we go in here. My nose is red. Yeah, I got Coke nose for sure right now. But I ain't gonna fall for no banana in my tailpipe, Bill. It ain't gonna happen, bro. First person to guess what movie that's from, I'll send a beanie to. You got to send me an email. The first email I get that says what movie that's from, the first email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I'll send you a beanie. Okay? I'm looking at my email right now. So as soon as it comes through, I'll announce the winner. So first person, I'm not going to say the quote again either, so you guys got to catch on to it. Let me see. Okay, I'm going through here. All right. Where do I find my music that I use in my videos and on my live streams? I pay for a music service, a royalty-free music service called Epidemic Sound. And the 80s music that I use, I always search up funny 80s music because I like that kind of music, Miami Vice style. It's just, I don't know. I just like it. I'm a kid of the late 80s, early 90s, so I like that kind of music. So that's why I use it so much. But yeah, Epidemic Sound is where I find it. I usually put links to the music in the bottom. So nobody's guessed the quote yet. I'm looking at my email right now. So I already answered that question. Let's go ahead and do this one. I already answered that question. I'm going through my list of things. I already answered that question. Look, I'm burning through these questions right now. Ooh, this was a really good topic that someone said. Let me see. I'm seeing if anybody... Oh, there you go. Matt P. It was Beverly Hills Cop. That's right. Matt P. was the first person to email me. So, Matt, send me an email with your address, what kind of beanie you want, cuffed or non-cuffed, and I'll get it sent out to you, okay? All right, yeah, Matt P. was the first person to send it to me. David was second, but we were only giving away one of them, so Matt is the winner. Stay tuned. I'll do more of that stuff here coming up. So should every condensing unit that we install have a suction line accumulator? And there's some contention with this point. A suction line accumulator is a protection device, okay? What it does is it brings the refrigerant back to a compressor and it hits the suction line accumulator and it dumps into the suction line accumulator, goes down to the bottom of the accumulator and lets the refrigerant out the bottom. Or actually, no, it dumps in the top of the accumulator. Yeah, it dumps in the top of the accumulator. And then the refrigerant's pulled from a separate portion. And the way it's designed is it separates the liquid from the vapor. So it's an extra protection device to protect your compressor from getting liquid refrigerant coming back to it. But here's the problem with suction line accumulators. And this is crappy, but unfortunately, this is the biggest problem. A suction line accumulator will have a pickup screen on the bottom of the accumulator, okay? The pickup screen is there in case any oil comes back in the suction line. The pickup screen pulls the oil in through the suction line. It's a small port, but it's small enough that it pulls any oil that might accumulate in the bottom of that accumulator, okay? But oftentimes, those pickup screens get full and clogged up because... as an industry in general, we do not use proper refrigeration practices. We do not braze with nitrogen. We have dirty systems. We don't purge our hoses, different things like that causes contamination in the system. So oftentimes suction line accumulators will become a vessel that holds oil. If you have a failed compressor, I always encourage you guys, even if it's under warranty, to pour the oil out of the compressor, okay? See how much is in there. Make sure that it actually has oil in it. If it doesn't have oil in it and it has a suction line accumulator, the odds are that oil is stuck in that accumulator. If you undo the accumulator, cut it out, pour it out, you'd be surprised how much oil will come out of that accumulator. It typically means that the pickup screen on the bottom of the accumulator is plugged up, okay? So I've had manufacturers from the factory that tell me, just take the accumulator out of the picture, okay? Of course, it's best practice to have a suction line accumulator before a compressor. It's a necessary safety device that just protects your compressor just in case you get some liquid flood back. What happens if you have liquid flood back? Well, what can typically happen is if the liquid refrigerant comes back into the compressor, you know, in the past we talked about slugging a compressor. That's not really, with modern compressors, that's not as much of an issue now, okay? And slugging's really more referring to oil. But if you have liquid refrigerant running to a compressor, what it'll typically do is it can cause the compressor to foam up the oil, and the oil can actually leave the compressor, and then the oil can get stuck, or it can come back into the accumulator and get stuck in the accumulator. So we don't want to flood liquid refrigerant back to the compressor. An accumulator is a safety device, but on the opposite side, if we're not following proper practices, an accumulator can cause more problems than help you, because if your system's dirty, the oil screen gets plugged up, the accumulator will get full of oil because of the design of it, okay? So, of course, I agree that we should have accumulators on anything that we work on, but what kind of problems are we going to run into? You know, I will install accumulators on my systems because I know I'm following proper practices, but I can't tell you how many systems I've gone behind and had a failed compressor, has no oil in it, and you pour out the accumulator and it's full of it. Same thing with heat pumps. You guys have a heat pump, it has an accumulator. You know, depending on if you've worked on the system or not, you may want to consider quoting that accumulator when you quote a compressor. It's cheap insurance. You know, it's one of those things. All right, let's see what else we got in here. Seeing what I'm missing in here. If you guys have questions or things you want me to talk about, you definitely want to put them in caps lock. That helps me to see it, okay? No, I have not. I have not serviced a horizontal scroll yet, Bill. Once I do, man, I'll get you some pictures for sure. What's my thoughts on acid and RX11, Terry? Terry, I am not a fan of RX11, okay? RX11 is a brand name. It's called Acid Scavenger. It's basically a, what do you want to call it? It's I can't think of the right word right now to describe what Acid Scavenger is, but essentially, or what RX11 is. What it does is it's a solvent. There you go. It's a solvent that scrubs the lines of scrubs the walls of the refrigerant lines and tries to get any contaminants out of the system. Okay. If I have a burnout, I actually quoted a burnout on a Linux package unit. I do not quote RX11. Okay. What I do is I quote high acid, or HH filter dryers, liquid and suction, Sporlan HH cores, okay? In the past, we always referred to them as high acid cores, but they're actually not. The HH core is a high wax removal. It's not really an acid neutralizer. It's just a common term that we used to say all the time, but it's really not correct. So on the Sporlan HH cores, those are typically a burnout dryer, and what it's really there to do is to clean up the wax from the windings, because typically if you have an acidic system, it starts eating the wax coating off of the windings, and then that is floating around in the system, plugging everything up. So when it comes to those, what I'll typically do, if I have a burnout on that Linux package unit, I quote a TXV, I quote a compressor, suction line filter dryer, liquid line filter dryer. We go oversized, so we go 30 cubic inch on the suction and we go 16 cubic inch on the liquid. And then what I do is I cut the condenser out. So the discharge line going into it, the liquid line coming out, I cut them. And then I'll purge that with nitrogen. Then I'll purge from the liquid line to the TXV. Then I'll purge through the evaporator coil, and I cut in multiple places and just blow out anything that I can. have used the acid RX11 and things like that in the past, but I don't really see a huge advantage to them. And I also find and feel that a lot of that stuff is getting misused in general. Did you guys know, and I've said this before, if you're using RX11, do you know the proper way to use it? So the proper way to use RX11 is, let's say you're up on the roof and you want to purge the liquid line going downstairs, okay? So you put RX11 in there, and then you put nitrogen in there, and you chase it with nitrogen. But down at the bottom, at the outlet, you need to pinch the line off until it's a very, very small opening, because that RX11 is meant to scrub the walls. And if you don't pinch off the line, then it's just going to flow through the system and not scrub very well. Okay, so a lot of people aren't even using RX11 correctly. Same thing on a suction line. You're supposed to pinch the suction line down. You never put RX11 in after you've put the compressor in. You always put it in when the lines are completely open, and it's really just meant to scrub the line sets. But my fear is the solvent that there is in there is going to get stuck in the system, and there's going to be crap left over. So I choose not to use any additives. I don't use neutralizers or anything like that. I just put in good filter dryers, purge the system with nitrogen, new refrigerant, come back and do a filter dryer check a couple days later. That's my acid cleanup procedure. In my recent video, what was causing the fans to run on low speed? I said it in the video, but a few people asked, so they must not have watched all the way through. So in the video, I originally said, I think I know the cause of the compressor failure, and it's that the evaporator fan motors on the walking coils were running too low. They weren't running at high speed. They actually were doing what they were supposed to be doing. The type of controller that they use to control the speeds of the fan looks at the differential across the expansion valve. It has a sensor on one side and on the other side, and it looks for that differential. So because I had a bad compressor, there was no differential, therefore the fans were running at low speed. Once I fixed the system and there was a differential across the expansion valve, the fans sped up to 100% when the system was calling. So the fans were not the problem. We never found the cause of the compressor failure. We know it was mechanical, but I did not autopsy that compressor. That one was chucked away. That was a couple months ago too. But I did see metal shavings in the oil, so I know it was some sort of a mechanical failure inside that compressor. That compressor, I think, was an original compressor from the 90s anyways, so I wasn't too concerned. Mitchell had asked where I get the books that I troubleshoot with when I work on ice machines. He was specifically referring to Hoshizaki books, but I've had a million people ask me the questions about any ice machine manufacturer books that I use. Lean on the manufacturers. If you need a Hoshizaki book, call Hoshizaki Parts direct, okay? And get a part number from them. If you can't order from Hoshizaki Parts Direct, because I know a lot of people order from United Refrigeration or whatever refrigeration wholesaler you use, you can actually order from Hoshizaki Direct. They have their own parts department. They have Hoshizaki Western in my area, and you can purchase things and pick them up from them direct. They have one in Las Vegas, and I know they have some in the Midwest and back east too. But if you're going through your local supplier, just call Hoshizaki Parts, ask them for the part number for the books, and they'll give them to you, and then you can order them through your local wholesaler. If you're like me and you want to hold a book in your hand, that's the route to go. If you want to get it for free, go to Hoshizaki's website, Manitowoc's website, Isomatic, Fullet, Scotsman, insert name of manufacturer, go to their website. They typically have the manuals in PDF forms that you can download for free. All right. If you don't mind printing them out or keeping them on your phone, you can have the manuals. But if you like to hold them, you need to order them direct from the manufacturer. Let me get to the chat and see what I'm missing in here. I need to take a drink too. All right. Is this just refrigeration and no HVAC? Craig, no. I do air conditioning and refrigeration. Do it all, man. I'm always talking about it. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Peachtree City, Georgia. That's where Hoshizaki headquarters is. Well, the United States headquarters. The main headquarters is in Japan. What's up with the voodoo banana man behind you? Oh, that's a good... See, Laska caught that one. Hold on. All right. Banana man. So this was a sick joke from my buddy Bill. My buddy Bill sent this to me, I think for my birthday or something like that, as a joke, because it's a creepy banana man. Especially when you take his shirt off and you look at his legs. They're creepy bananas, dude. So Bill sent this to me just to mess with me, and it's like magnetic, so it'll hug on you. And my kids come in my office and move it to different places all over my house or in my office just to mess with me. So yeah, this is from Curious HVAC Guy. He has a sick sense of humor, and he sent me Banana Man. Was it my buddy Joe, HVACR North, who's in here too, for Christmas? He sent me a pair of boxers with his face all over them, with like lips, like kissing lips or whatever. Yeah, we have a sick sense of humor with my buddies. If you guys don't follow the HVAC Overtime channel, you definitely need to. I know that the moderators will post a link to the Overtime channel in the chat. Friday evenings, it's an uncensored hangout fest with my buddies. Myself, Curious HVAC Guy, Bill, Adam Muffich, and Joe, who mysteriously won't tell us his last name and won't ever... You know the interesting thing? We've talked about this on the Overtime channel, and we joke about it all the time. Joe, myself, Bill, and Adam have all done this show for years. Don't have Joe's phone number, don't have his address, don't know where he lives. He's like super secretive. I kind of think he's a Russian spy, but I don't know. But definitely go check out the Overtime channel. Heat pumps as pool heaters. Thoughts? Have I worked on them? No, I have not worked on them as pool heaters, but I mean, it's a cool concept. The only thing I'd be most concerned about, which I'm sure is what you run into, is the chlorine in the water if you're using a chlorinated pool. That stuff has got to be interesting on the inside of that heat exchanger where the heat exchanging is happening between the condenser and the water from the pool. But I think it's a cool concept. Why not? Right? If you can go electric and use a heat pump and your electricity costs aren't that much, then go for it. Here in Southern California, gas heat is a little bit cheaper, but they're phasing out gas heat. They want to get rid of combustible appliances and all that stuff. So they're going all electric, which is ironic because we have a horrible power grid here. Is Modern Refrigeration 20th edition and your code books for your state of Kentucky best for your test? Craig, I think that is a great book for sure. It depends on what's going to be on your test. Is there a study guide? But Modern Refrigeration is a great one. But I would try to find a study guide so you know where to hone your knowledge in, because reading the entire Modern Refrigeration book, that's pretty intense, man. All right, let's see what else we got in here. How do I feel about leaving access ports on small units? Your company leaves them on even for warranty jobs. Sam Fletcher, I'm going to be honest and open with you right now. If I'm doing warranty work for one of my customers that I know is one of my regular customers, then I'm going to leave the service ports on. If I'm doing warranty work for a customer that I don't normally service, I'm going to take the service ports off, because technically the manufacturers want the service ports gone as part of their warranty procedure. But if I'm going to be the person going back, I'm not worried about it, and I'll leave them on to save myself the hassle of having to do pinch-off tools and different things like that. And that goes with R290 and regular refrigerants. If I'm the constant guy it's one of my regular customers and I'm doing the warranty work, I'll just leave the service ports on. I'm not going to bother pinching them off anymore. Why do I use, this question was specifically for my recent video, but why do I use such a small brazing tip? And the case of my last video, I was doing... I was brazing 56% silver solder doing the rotolock valve, and I was brazing it on and I was using a 0 tip. So why did I use such a small tip? Well, because you can control the heat a little bit better. Sometimes I use the wrong tips just because I'm lazy and I don't want to change it out. But in that situation, the 0 tip was getting it plenty hot enough. It was pinpointing the heat in the right place that it needed to be. Later on, I was using a rosebud tip because I was doing bigger copper lines and I could be a little bit more aggressive with my brazing. But when I'm trying to do a suction service valve or a sensitive component, I'm going to typically put the smallest tip as possible on there, so that way I can control the heat and put it where it needs to be and not be just heating up the entire valve and just wasting a bunch of energy and hurting or potentially hurting the valve. So, but sometimes it's just because I'm lazy. I already answered that question. Let's cross that off the list. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Does Adam have a channel? He does, but he doesn't have any videos on it. HVAC for PC cooling. Don't know what you're asking there. Best way to replace the oil in a compressor. If it doesn't have an oil port, unfortunately, you're going to need to cut the compressor out of the picture and pour the oil out. On some of the semi-hermetic compressors, they would have an oil port. You can put a special device in there to grab all the oil out of the system. Or on some of the refrigeration scroll compressors, they'll have an oil port on them too, which is great. But if you don't have an oil port and you need to change the oil because, say, you're converting the refrigerant or doing something else, unfortunately, unsweat the compressor, pour the oil out, put it back in. It's kind of a crappy procedure. I kind of think it should be an industry standard that every compressor should have an oil port on it, period. It would make our job so much easier. See what else we got going on in here. Did I hear Cali tried to do a control burn and it ended up going wild? Frost HVAC. That's happened several times. I don't know if there's a new one that happened, but they do control burns here all the time. Best way to... I already answered that question. Is California going to ban trees if they are banning all combustible appliances? Oh, the hippies, man. You give the hippies an inch and they take a mile, so I wouldn't be surprised. What else we got going on in here? What about R290? Come on, Cali. California is set to eradicate the state itself because it causes cancer. That is absolutely correct. Hey, but guess what? It's we're full-fledged winter right now, and it's 60 degrees, 65 degrees outside. So, yeah, there is that about California. We don't know what cold is. All right, were those posters always on my wall? Yeah, I have tons of posters in here. I wish I could show them to you guys, but I can't really right now. But I have I've always had Sporlin posters on my wall. I have let me see. I can probably zoom out a little bit and show you guys right now. I have let's see, configure video. Let's see if I can crash the stream right now. So if I zoom out and then pan left, that's not working. That's not working. Let's see. Well, I zoom out, you can see all my pressure temperature charts, and I have solenoid valve posters and everything on there. So yeah, I have a lot of different posters all over my wall. They're great because it's easy when I'm doing different things, and I can focus on what I need to focus on. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom back where I need to. Get that string out of the way. Perfect. There we go. All right, that's awesome. And cancel that, and it goes back to normal, and there's done. So yeah, all right, guys, you got questions, throw them in the chat. I'll try to get to them right now, and we'll see what we can talk about. I've got a little bit more in me. In that, got another one, and we'll answer some questions. I talked about my PC specs earlier. So far, so good with the PC. For the new people that's in here, I just built a PC with the help of my buddy. Let me say that I never would have known anything about building a PC unless my buddy Ike helped me out. So I gave him a budget of what I was willing to spend, and he maxed out the budget with crazy information. I'll talk about it again because I'm sure I'll just talk about it real quick. We used an AMD Threadripper 3970. 3.7 gigahertz 32 core processor. We used liquid cooling for the processor. I have a Gigabyte TRX 40 motherboard, 128 gigabytes of memory, Western Digital Black 4 terabyte hard drive, Western Digital Gold 18 terabyte hard drive, Samsung 1 terabyte solid state drive, MSI Radeon RX 6900 XT 16 gigabyte video card. We used an oversized tower, 1200 watt power supply, and we're running Windows 10 for those new people that are in here right now. Let's see what else. Is it possible for a leaking system with UV dye inside to leak refrigerant but not leak the UV dye? Yeah. The concept of UV dye is that the dye mixes with the oil. So if the oil's not traveling through the system, yes, it's possible. I've seen it before that I actually have a video on my channel or maybe on my Instagram. One time I went behind another service company that had been adding refrigerant, and they said they needed new evaporator coils. And I made a video and shared it on my Instagram of they had UV dye in the system. So I had my UV lights and my flashlight, and I couldn't see the leak, but Refrigeration Technologies Big Blue soap bubbles was bubbling like crazy, but there was no dye right there. And it's because the dye only travels with the oil. It doesn't travel with the refrigerant. So if the oil's not traveling around, or, yeah, it's always possible. Dye is not a perfect solution to try to fix things. And dye is a messy nightmare too, by the way. How did I feel building a PC? Honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal. I think my buddy Ike was a little bit more worried about me building it because it was very expensive, and I think he was worried that I was going to mess something up. But honestly, I wasn't too worried about it. It was just kind of like, it is what it is, you know, put it back together, tried to not do any static electricity kind of a thing and put it together. But I mean, I just had to ask him a bunch of times, where does this go? Where does that go? And he, you know, he was helping me out all along. But I mean, really wasn't much work for me other than just kind of pushing things in and doing what he said. So it's pretty easy other than that. So thanks so much, Ike, for helping me out. Do I ever work on the furnace side of my package units? Yeah, but here in California, you know, our winters are, you know, 50 to 60 degrees. So, you know, they don't use heating as much as you would think. And then last year, because everything was shut down, we hardly got any heating calls at all. But yeah, I work on the heating side. I'm sure we'll have some videos. I already know that I've got a couple actually, I've got a crap ton of heat exchangers that are bad. I've been trying to tell my customer. I started telling my customers in the middle of the summer, hey guys, I know we have bad heat exchangers at all these restaurants. We need to get these orders now because, you know, I know that when they didn't want to do it, and here we are now, we're coming into winter, and they're going to need heat exchangers for their package units, and I bet you we're not going to be able to get the parts. So, you know, I tried to warn them, but let's see where they go with that. More power. What was the most frustrating door left open call I have seen? Almost like my recent video. Probably just my recent video, man. I mean, I don't really have one specifically. Have I ever repaired a defrost heater? Not repaired. I mean, besides an electrical short on just the wire, but I've never opened one up and repaired it. No, it's not really, they're not really field repairable for the most part. What are my thoughts on pulling a vacuum on a system with a known leaking evaporator? I've had to do it many times. It's not perfect. Essentially, you pull the vacuum and put refrigerant in it as fast as possible. You want to get somewhat of a decent vacuum, but at some point, you know, you're defeating the purpose, because when you're pulling the vacuum, you're going to be pulling air into the system too. So it's not really a perfect process when you're doing that. I already answered that one. Going through here, looking to see what I missed. Already answered that one. Do I know the THD from my utility company, or how clean is my power? Do I know the THD? I don't know what that is, Peter Griffin. But we have decent power where I'm at. We'll have power outages, but we typically don't have brownouts where I'm at. And some other parts of my area, yeah, we definitely have them. How do I test control thermostat wire if you have a temperamental communication error? Well, for the most part, what I'm working on is just a standard thermostat wire, so it's not really communication. When you say communication, I think of kind of like what's the right word for communication? Gosh, I can't think of what I'm trying to say right now, but when I think of communication, I think of like VRF systems, or systems that are pulsing electrical pulses across a wire as a form of communication. What I'm dealing with is either it has power or it doesn't. So if I have a faulty connection where, you know, we don't have power on the roof, but we have it downstairs, or vice versa, then I know I have a bad thermostat wire. Then it's as simple as changing the thermostat wire. So if that makes sense. THD is total harmonic distortion. Yeah, I don't know what that is for my electrical grid. Kind of strange, have bad heat exchanger when it isn't used much. Well, but oftentimes our heat exchangers, nothing is sized right here. And it's not really that it's strange. They're carrier package units. How is it strange? I mean, it's pretty common for a carrier package unit to have a bad heat exchanger. Typically, it has to do with airflow issues, low airflow. The heater gets used. You know, there's a lot of them out there, so they have a high failure rate. But most of the time, it's because airflow issues and stuff. Does my family leave the door open on my refrigerators all the time, Laska? If you follow my social media, I was making fun of my wife a while back because you should see how she overpacks our freezer. And I'm like, that's not going to work. We got a problem there, you know. All right. Already answered that one. Already answered that one. How many hydronic heating systems have I dealt with, residential or commercial? Absolutely zero hydronic heating systems. I don't deal with any of them whatsoever. Every heating system that I've had to deal with has either been a heat pump and or a gas-fired furnace. That is it. You find a leak on R290 systems. Can you use O32S? Ooh, Bear Downs. That is the problem. Okay, so great question, Bear Downs. Okay, Bear Downs is saying that he's working on an R290 system. He found a leak, but he wants to make the repair, but he wants to know if an O32 dryer, 32 cubic inch dryer is, or actually 3 cubic inch dryer is the right size. 3 cubic inch, the 2 represents quarter inch. So that is, could you use that dryer? Yes, but here is the problem. The internal volume of the dryer is going to be different than what is on the factory dryer. So you're going to have to add more refrigerant than the nameplate charge says. So if you put an O32 dryer on there, you're probably going to have to add more R290, and it's probably going to exceed the 150 grams or whatever they have in that system. So it's always best to go with the OEM dryer when you're dealing with R290. If you're not going to go with the OEM, just understand that you're going to have a problem. My family is home. I can smell food right now. My wife said she was going to the Thai restaurant to bring home Thai food. I swear I can smell it right now, and it smells so good. So you guys better put some questions in here because I'm about to bounce. Do I do any microbreweries? No, Dave K. I would love to get into some brewery work and winery work and stuff, but I don't at the moment. So am I going to AHR, and will I sign your S-Man manifold? Alexander, I mean, if you want to bring it, yeah, I plan on being at AHR. I'll be doing meetups at the AHR trade show. I have confirmed at the Sporlin booth. I will be doing a live stream from the Sporlin booth, probably multiple live streams. And then I will also be at the Refrigeration Technologies booth. So I'll be at different times at both of those booths. So definitely I plan on being there unless all hell breaks loose. I'm going to be there. I also plan on being at the Kalos HVAC school training event, the HVACR training symposium in February in Claremont, Florida too. That's Brian Orr's event. I'm sure tickets are already on sale, but I plan on being at that one too for sure. Do I do? Oh, I already answered that question. Where's Luke? Luke is barking in the background. I can hear him in the other room, but he's in there. Any videos on rack systems? Not parallel rack systems. I only do basic racks. So if AHR comes to the East Coast or Florida, you'll go. Well, Frost, AHR rotates. So it's going to be in Vegas this year, and then I bet you it'll be in Boston or Florida next year, and then it rotates back to different places. So it does like 4 locations, and then it rotates and keeps flowing back around. So it's going from East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast, or to the South, and it goes all over the place. All right, well, it is time to wrap this up. I really, really appreciate you guys. And it is time for me to go eat my dinner. So I am not going to be doing an encore. I am definitely going to be bouncing out of here. And we will... let's go to that one right there and cross that one off, and we will catch you guys on the next one.